Don't worry, friends, we've all been there. Savage enemies charging headlong as your raggedy group of soldiers and companions dig in beside you. The steel and gleaming armor of the enemy striking in contrast to your stinking animal hides and leather jerkins. Companions are one of the most powerful agents you can employ in Calradia, but there is a bewildering amount of choices you can make. Spear and shield? Or maybe we give them some throwing axes? Where do we use them in the army? How on earth do we keep these guys alive? In this new series, we'll cover all of these questions and we'll help you power level your future companions. Alright friends, welcome back again to another episode of Tactical Enlightenment. Our YouTube channel is dedicated to all things Bannerlord related. And welcome back again to another episode of our Companions series. We're going to continue to try to show you guys some of the inner details of Bannerlord, how an experienced player manages his companions, how we manage our units, different unit specs. We'll cover banners today. We'll talk even a little bit about city management. There's going to be a lot packed into what I hope is a 30 to 40 minute episode. Now, there's probably going to be a battle as well. And we're going to talk extensively about a variety of things here, but almost exclusively related to companions. So, of course, we've talked about it before. You get generally about 10 companions to manage in a typical campaign. You've got a wife, and then we have 9 companions. In our army itself right now, it looks like we have 7. There's some people scattered doing various different things. We have a couple leading armies, and they're actually in armies out there in our kingdom, which is going to be something that we cover in a different episode. You can see there's 2 separate armies besides our own. That is because we have player clans in this campaign. This is part of our Botanian campaign. If you want to learn more about the development of that, you want to check out that full campaign playthrough. They're wandering around out there. We're not going to concern ourselves very much with them, though. My brain very easily is distracted these days. All right, so let's focus first on characters and perks. Now, I'm not going to spend 2 hours, as much as some guys have asked for it, covering every single perk. You can do the math. There's about 10 perks. What is there? 15, 18 different areas. So what is that? 180 perks. And then there's 2 choices each, right? So theoretically, 360 different perks to cover. Not going to do that again. I'll refer you guys to Strat Gaming Guide. There's other content creators out there that cover things more comprehensively. What I am going to cover today is specifically related to which perks I select for infantry captains, archer captains, right? That's very important. Which perks I select for party leaders, and how we groom future clan leaders. The progression is essentially as you create your kingdom, or even just as a vassal, you will have companions leading armies like this guy. And a better term for it, I say armies a lot. These guys are leading parties. When you come into your party menu here, you can see we have 3 different parties out there. 2 of them, of course, already in another army. And then we have this guy, Cunbert the Loud, with a terrible name. He is in our army, right? So an army is multiple parties, is the easiest way to think about it. Now, development basically works like this. Early in a game of Bannerlord, you're developing companions, right? You'll go to a tavern, pick up a companion, and start to level them. And people always ask, how do you level them? And more accurately, what's the most efficient way? Well, for sure, it's the opposite of the jack of all trades. The guys who have, their points sort of scattered across different areas, those companions aren't very valuable. Most of our companions, we look to specialize them into one of, I guess I would say, 3 or 4 molds. The first one is a captain of a division within the army. So this army that we have itself will have somewhere between 6 and 8 divisions in a typical battle. We will cover the banners that also go with these guys, but you want them to have a bunch of perks that benefit the division they're leading. And you just want to use common sense. I say it's very simplistic. However, I've played so much Bannerlord, a lot of things that are complicated to new players are simplistic to me. So we'll cover this in just a bit of more detail here because guys want to know. If you look at our different characters that are within the army here, this guy, for example, he's one of our straight meathead infantrymen, right? This guy's not a philosopher. He never went to college. He's stupid, but he's really good at killing people, and the people around him benefit from his perks. So as you cruise through these lists, in fact, there's a few here that I need to adjust. You know what? Let's go ahead and do that. Let's adjust some perks. This is perfect for the episode. Some players may not know this. You got a character, and let me just show you again what we want to adjust here. I better also talk about the philosophy of it, because it's going to make it easy for you to understand and make your selections. You see these two different choices here. The top one is actually lit right now, sort of a yellow color. The one on the bottom here is darker. That means it's inactive. So this top one, in fact, it says active there at the bottom of that little panel. Plus 3% combat movement speed, plus 5% combat movement speed to troops in your formation. The first one, the top one, is personal. That affects him only. The captain one obviously affects the division or the group in the army that he is leading, right? When you get to your army panel, he'll be put in charge of a division. That second one of the two, the lower one of the two, affects the army. Now, out of these two perks, I actually prefer the lower one. And let me just spend 30 seconds philosophy on choices, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you basically the wisdom that I use to deck out my companions. And then I think it'll be a lot easier for you guys to make choices on how you use your companions. Plus 5 hit points for himself and plus 5 hit points to the foot troops in the party. That is far more valuable than combat movement speed. Combat movement speed affects how much damage these guys do when they move. Think about it. If you're punching somebody flat-footed, you do a lot less damage than if you run up to them and swing a giant roundhouse. So this top perk helps the army do more damage overall, and it helps him do a little bit more damage as well. I much prefer the bottom one, and this is basically my answer in a nutshell. You're going to see me make choices consistently based on one key thing: survival. If your companion is down, if the army he's leading is dead, they're not doing any damage, right? That doesn't do any good for them to do more damage if they're laying in the dirt. So number one, when it comes to my perk philosophy, is make them survive. That may affect things like, affect choices where it's like how much they heal after battle, right? Some of these things, they heal more after a battle. It also might affect how much their armor is impacted by the perk, etc. So my choices almost always yield to hit points, things that will help them survive. Movement is important, but it's less important than survival, right? If your guys don't, yeah, you get the point. If they're not alive, they're not doing any damage. So that's number one. Number two, when it comes to speed, because some of these choices, here's a good example. This is the second one in the weapon area. You either get a faster swinging one-handed weapon, or you do more damage. Well, I've played a lot of Bannerlord, and when you watch an infantry line, or if you go to an arena, or you're just involved in combat, speed is almost always superior, right? When it comes to our custom weapons, we almost always make faster weapons, because if two units are right next to each other and they are both trying to kill the other guy, the one with the slower weapon generally has to yield to the faster weapon. In other words, they're both swinging at the same time. The one with the slower weapon either gets hit because his weapon moves slower, or he has to block, right? That faster weapon speed is key, especially with the AI. So whenever there's a choice where it's more damage or more speed, I almost always go for more speed. There are exceptions, and maybe we'll cover a few of those. So again, we've talked about this before in other episodes. I'm not going to spend a lot of time with it. This guy's an infantryman, right? I don't give a shit about these perks. In fact, if I could, I would take all these perk points away. This guy doesn't even know anything about tactics. I'm the one doing tactics, right? I wish I could pull these points up to there. Same thing with all of the rest of them. Don't waste any points down here. Now there is, as soon as I said that, I thought of one. There's one very minor exception, but it's a bit difficult even to obtain it. This first medicine skill gives them the ability to get more hit points. What did I say about survival, right? It's good for them to survive. And that personal one there on the bottom is pretty nice. 30% recovery of lost hit points after each battle. So say he starts out at 100% health, maybe he's got 100 hit points, and he gets completely wounded, down to 0 hit points. At the end of that battle, he's going to have 30% hit points. Well, why is that important? The reason it's important is in some battles in Bannerlord, you will face back-to-back fights. And if you have this guy knocked unconscious, and then maybe the next thing you do is defend a castle and siege, he's unconscious still. He's still in the sick bay, and obviously he can't fight. The ability just to have this guy up is enormously important for two reasons. First, he's doing damage himself. He's throwing these javelins, right? And we'll talk a little bit more about weapon spec. But more importantly, he's providing all the banner perks to his army. You do not get the banner perks if the captain is not there, because when you're in the pre-battle menu setup on the tactical stage of a battlefield, he's not even there. He's missing, right? So this perk is something you could level up. Now, I haven't been doing that in this campaign. If I was in a campaign where I was very interested in min-maxing, or I guess another word for that is playing as a perfectionist, what I would do is I would create a party with this guy, give him a bunch of wounded troops, and then hope that over the course of, a week or two of healing those wounded troops, he acquired that skill. And that would be it. That would be the only thing I would focus on these lower areas. There are other things that might benefit them a tiny amount, but I really don't care besides that. Stick to these up here, and in particular, try to focus on 3 things. Now, these guys have 3 combat skills, or at least that guy does. Where's my other warrior here? This guy here. Actually, he has 3 also. If I was building them from scratch, say you have a child, right, and you're playing a long campaign, I would focus on simply 3 things. Athleticism, maybe riding if they're on a horse, but if they're not on a horse, strictly athleticism. So if it's a bow captain or something like that, right, we're sticking strictly to athleticism, their primary ranged skill, and then their primary weapon skill. In fact, she's a good example here. None of these other skills I give a shit about, right? She's never going to use any of these weapons. Don't waste perk points over here. Now, if you start to develop extra like this, there is a reason to boost some of these, and that is because if you really feel like developing her throwing skill, there are some perks in here that will benefit the army she's in that are not related to throwing or not related to bow or whatever it is. You can do that extra specialization, but boy, you really don't need to. Stick to their primary skills. The word that Mark Cuban uses is core competencies, and you will have deadly companions. This is no mods, no hacks, no anything. A regular campaign, 3 or 4 or 5 years into it, and she's a beast on the battlefield already, right? She's starting to approach some of the very high-end bow skills. She's also delivering all these perks to the army as an archer captain, and let's cover them really quick. Actually, before we do that, squirrel, my brain bouncing around all over the place. In fact, let's get even more caffeine. You guys are like, no more caffeine. All right, we were going to cover Byron Blood Axe because he has a perk that I don't like, right? We were looking at it right here. Let's see, it was under athleticism, right? Yeah, here we go. So I want this guy to have this lower one. +5 extra hit points to the foot troops in his party. That alone, even if it didn't get him 5 extra points, is very valuable because he might be in charge of 100 infantrymen. That's 500 extra hit points on the battle. That's very important over the course of a long battle. And of course, there's a lot of different perks that stack on the battlefield. There will be other perks in here, in his other categories that add hit points to his army, right? Collectively, when you take all of those, these guys can become very, very powerful. All right, so let's adjust this endurance. How do you do that? We'll do this real quick. You go into the arena. You have to actually visit the arena. It's not available from this menu. You got to actually click the right button. We go to the arena here. Now you got to talk to this dipshit here with the birth control haircut. This option right here, these teachers who help people hone their skill, blah, 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 blah. Click that. Say this is for a clan member or a skill member of a member of the clan. Go down to Byron Blood Axe. Now, these are the categories that the traits are under. We want to adjust his athleticism, so it's under endurance. And we say athletics, right? And you say yes, it costs you some money, right? You gotta manage your money. Of course, we have plenty. Tell them sure, and now we can leave. Right now, you can adjust other skills, you can do other companions, but I just want to do one for today to show you that you can do that. By the way, you cannot adjust attribute points, which is a real shame. Basically, they're born into those, and then you adjust them over the course of their campaign, your campaign. And look at this. It's reset all these athleticism perks so that we can now come in here and to hell with speed, right? In fact, we'll cover some of these perks here as part of this episode. I'm not worried about speed. We're going to give him a speed banner anyway, so he's cruising around the battlefield. That's going to be irrelevant. This is the one we want, right? We want survival first, right? So let's cruise through some of these. Again, this affects speed or weapon handling on foot. I prefer this. If you've never heard of that, weapon handling on foot, what the hell does that even mean, right? Bannerlord is a very complicated game, and the tutorial would have to be hundreds of pages long for us to understand all the different details. Again, personal and captain. Top one affects him. This bottom one affects the captain, the group of troops he's leading. Weapon handling has to do with effectively the sweet spot of your weapon. And here's the easiest way to think about it. If you have a 4-foot-long axe and you swing it next to someone that's right next to you, you're probably going to hit him with the handle, right? You're too close to the guy, and it's not going to do very much damage. If you have a higher weapon handling, what that effectively does is increase the sweet spot of the axe, right? Think of an axe head as maybe 8 inches long. This weapon handling effectively increases, sort of artificially, the size and reach of that sweet spot. That means that this guy, even with sort of clumsy, poorly aimed swings, is doing more damage. And of course, this is a perk I like with my own character. You're not always able to line up a perfect shot with your weapon. These are sort of insignificant, and I'm going to glaze over a lot of these. These are party related. He's not going to be leading a party, right? I mean, I guess you could temporarily to raise his medicine skill. I don't give a shit about this. We're not smithing. None of that matters. This is a good one here too. It's a very simple one. Plus damage with melee weapons. Okay, that's the whole army division does 2% more. The whole army group he's leading, or again, more combat speed. You'll see later on how we're going to gain our combat speed. That'll be with a banner. Again, we're going to choose that extra damage in that case. Here's another one. This is a very important one, I think. Plus damage bonus from speed while on foot, or minus 40% charge damage taken. Now, the enemy cavalry is going to be charging at times through your infantry, and they're going to knock guys around. It does charge damage, right? When you've been on a horse, it causes charge damage. You guys know why I'm selecting this top one now, right? If not, I'll just say it again. Survival. If these guys don't survive, they're not killing. This next one is a very simple choice. Hit points while waiting in settlements, and we get some other experience and shit like that, or hit points while we're moving. Well, I don't know about you, but I don't sit still when I play Bannerlord or when I film an episode. In fact, I'm squirming around in my chair. We want to heal while we're moving, right? These guys are going to be going from battle to battle to battle. I want them healing on the road. This one is instantaneous, and we talked about this in one of our previous episodes. Always you're choosing athleticism and leveling this particular skills to get to this perk and the next perk. Who cares about this lower one here? We're not going to make him a governor. We will talk about governors in today's episode, as long as I don't talk you to death. Plus endurance, right? We want the guy to have higher endurance. Plus control or vigor, right? This one's a little harder of a decision because you get either more accurate javelin throws or whatever, better javelin throws, or this guy's primarily fighting in an infantry line, right? Let's give him vigor. Now, plus 5 party speed by foot troops in your party. This is a double boom, right? This makes him a stronger leader, or excuse me, a stronger warrior, and then his army group moves even faster. And you're going to see the division he's in is going to rocket around. We are going to cover army speed at some point or other. In fact, little spoiler, I've already filmed the episode. These are sort of being filmed chronologically out of order. You will see how speed is dramatically important on a battlefield. However, we want to have surviving guys moving fast, right? That's something we've already covered. This doesn't really matter too much, 5% damage with throwing weapons, but it does help the skill of all the troops in the formation with throwing damage, or we eat less food as a governor. He's never going to do that, right? So most of these choices are automatic. All right, so that is your foot troop. I'll cover very quickly the archer here. This gal here is our primary archer. Don't really care too much about her combat skills, her melee skills. If she's in melee, there's a problem. Athleticism, mostly it's pretty simple, right? The same thing as before. You want her to survive. So this is another good example. And by the way, these are spec'd wrong, not because I was drunk when I did this, but because when you pick up companions from a tavern, they're already pre-spec'd, right? If I was playing this campaign more slowly, more methodically, I would respec her and change this again for hit points for her army. In fact, think about that plus 5 hit points for foot troops in your party. That includes archers. They're on foot, right? So she's going to be leading an archer division. Five more hit points for your archers. You might have mathematically, like every time an archer gets hit, there's like when archers get hit by enemy arrows, they're dropping left and right. If you could get an extra 5, 10, 15 hit points, maybe 20% or something like that percentage of the time where they would get killed by a shot, they survive and they keep shooting, right? So again, very important. I didn't do that here. I'm not going to spend the time to go back to the arena guy and do that whole process again. We'll cruise to some of the higher level perks here. In fact, let's go to bow skill because we've already covered endurance. I think this is another one. Yeah, so 30% accuracy penalty while moving. We talk about it all the time with archers. Generally, you don't want them moving, right? In this case, the bottom perk is actually pretty nice, plus 5% damage with bows by troops in your formation. The lower ones here have to do with skills and headshots. Some of these are coin flips. I think that top one is actually preferable because her troops are going to all shoot for more damage. The next one, plus armor penetration, or the group gets armor penetration, right? That's a good one because if you're shooting at heavily armored knights, it's going to basically puncture better. Movement penalty reduction speed while reloading, sort of beneficial, but I don't think super important. And the bottom one there, movement speed for the archer division. We're going to talk about banners. Those archers are going to be flying around the battlefield. All right, accuracy penalty while rotating. Let's see here. Reload speed. This one's automatic, right? You want your archers shooting as much as possible. Reloading speed is huge, right? So we're definitely selecting that one. Cruising right along the line here. Most of these aren't that important. This one is plus 8% damage with bows for her, plus 5% damage with bows by tier 3 plus troops in your formation. Well, I got news for you. Your later army groups are all going to be tier 3 plus, right? So that's extra damage for everybody. Just cruising along here. That one's sort of insignificant. So is this one, but this is not. 10% damage taken from projectiles by ranged troops in your formation. Well, most of the damage your archers are taking should be from projectiles, right? So that's a hugely valuable perk. Just cruising right along. Another sort of insignificant one. And this one I think is to taste, right? Okay, no, it's not to taste. She's a foot archer. So this one's obviously automatic. Extra arrows for everybody, including her, or she can use all bows on horseback. Well, we're not going to bother with that one. So that choice also is automatic. All right, let's talk about our player clan here. Actually, you know what? Let's get to a battle. We're going to get to the battle stage. Let's see. How do I want to do this? You know what? Let's level this guy's. Let's level some of this guy's skills. Let's talk about this for a few minutes. We've got a future clan member. The way to think about it is first they're a party leader within your army. It's free to call them, right? It doesn't take any influence. So this guy's basically just saddled up with us. And you have control over these guys in a number of different ways. First, you can tell them, give me all your troops, right? You have complete control over the troops they have. And that's going to factor in some of the decisions we make here shortly. The next thing, of course, is that you have control over their inventory now. This is with 1.3. This is a new change. Before, you couldn't affect this. When they're a party leader, you can now go in here and say, okay, this guy's addicted to carbs and meat. We're going to adjust his diet. We're going to give him some more horses. We're going to essentially make some changes and improvements to his inventory. And for the most part, these changes will stay. Now, why do you care about this, right? It's not that big a deal, but this helps his speed, right? This helps his capacity. I think, yeah, look, you can see, in fact, as I give him more horses, the upper left there, this is his overall encumbrance or capacity for items, right? So the more horses we give this guy, the more ability he does have to carry all the grain that he's eating with his troops. Now, why is any of that important, right? Speed is important because sometimes these guys are going to be on their own, doing their own thing. But food is very important for leveling these guys. Let's go ahead and cover this real quick. This is this guy's skill set, and you notice we're not doing offense here. We're focused on the bottom. It's basically, you could put a dividing line right there. Warriors, the top 3, party leaders, future clan leaders, the bottom 3. It's nice if he can, swing his axe and do a little extra damage, knock some guys to the ground and stuff like that. But when I have a choice like this, where I can select any of these different attributes, we're going intelligence or we're going social. Here we're going to go intelligence because I want to start boosting this guy's steward skill. Now he's got some crossbow skill. We'll just kind of blaze through some of these. Extra hit points for everybody. We'll do better weapon handling. And again, you start to see a theme. Now this guy is leading a party, right? So we want to do plus party size, right? That way he increases the amount of troops he can carry. That'll be important when it comes to survival on his own All right, now before I started this episode, I actually reset the leadership for everybody here because I wanted to show you a few of these that are important. At some point or other, your player party leaders might be used as a governor, right? These guys have this lower tier skill. They're intelligent. They're philosophers. You might actually want to use these guys as a governor in a city. Now, most of these don't matter that much. Plus experience to the to all troops or to lower level troops. I don't actually find a big difference here. So I'm just going to call it like it is for most of these. This one is important. If a guy is getting attacked, it's much more likely he's going to be in trouble in a battle. That means I'm much more concerned about battle morale when they're defending. In other words, when somebody chases them down and attacks them. This top one, I don't care as much. Security bonus, party size limit. You're starting to see a theme here. Party size is another thing that I tend to heavily focus on. Security bonus or daily loyalty. So some of these are a hard decision. And there are two types of governors. One of the types of governors that I will design in a campaign where I'm sort of playing as a perfectionist is somebody who goes in and calms down rebellions. Rebellions have to do with city loyalty. We're going to have to cover that at a later point of this episode. I don't have the ability to do it now. Maybe we'll do that at Lagetta. So daily loyalty or party size limit. Here I'm going to go with party size limit. This one is somewhat important. Renown gained from battle. So that affects the player clan. Right now, he's not a player clan, right? So we're worried about his troops retreating on the battlefield. We don't need our troops retreating. This one is very important, right? This one should be obvious. +5 party size for each town you control. Now, I'm almost certain it says clan leader. That means his clan. So right now, he doesn't have a clan, so he's not going to gain extra troops. In fact, let's just do a quick experiment. We can go here and say donate 172. So if this was all of our towns, when I selected this perk, it should go up for him, but I'm pretty sure it's only his clan. So when I do that, let's see what happens here. We go to here, and I bet it doesn't go up. Oh shit, it did go up. Okay, so this one actually looks like it's not functioning. And you can see, I think it's under Horde Leader. I can't remember exactly which perk, but that says +10 now. So this one actually looks like it's functioning poorly. Let's not telltale worlds. Let's benefit from it. In fact, we just learned a little something here today's episode. I did. This little perk right here, plus party size for each town you control. It says clan leader. Well, he's not a clan leader, nor does his clan obviously have any cities. So it seems like it's functioning incorrectly. Basically, it seems like it's being based on our kingdom, although even that doesn't make sense because we have a lot more than 5 cities, 6 cities, 2 cities. I'm not sure what's going on there, but the bottom line is that one did benefit him. Now, where is that important? It is important for your clans that are out there, right? And we did that already. Of course, I've done this process already with these dipshits that are in the clans out there in the kingdom. Let me find them here. This guy here. We worked on this guy pretty hard. In fact, you could see this is the result of all the work we did earlier with this dipshit with the bat. If you're going to have that bad of a mustache, you at least better be a good leader, and he is. He's got good steward, leadership, medicine skill. His combat skills suck. It's all right. He orders other guys to kill for him. You see, again, our focus there. Engineering is good. Tactics is good. Charm can be good. In fact, we'll cover that here shortly. Let's see here. Let's convert the loud. Charm. Let's cover charm very quickly. There's one perk on charm that's really valuable. Here it is. That's really valuable for units in your army. For captains that are going to be out there leading parties. Plus 30% influence gain from battles. I like that a lot because these guys actually develop influence when you go to the party clan screen. These guys have a set of influence for their side. And if you don't have to, you could subsidize them here and use your own influence to sort of boost your relations and how much influence they have. This is important because it helps them lead armies. If they don't have the influence, they can't lead an army. And the more influence they have, almost like a YouTube channel. The more subscribers you have, the more influence you have, right? So if this guy has this perk, he's going to gain extra influence from every battle. And we're going to win a lot of battles, right? So we're going to pile this guy's influence up. Now, right now, I don't think he gains any influence because he's not an army. He's a player clan, right? Once he becomes, he's not, he's a army group in I guess the best way is he's a party group within our larger army, right? So it's not really affecting him now. Down the road, though, it will, right? So you want to have a long-term vision both with life, but also with your characters here, right? So that's a nice perk. Don't choose this top one. Renown and influence for each issue resolved. That relates to quests, right? You can send your captains out on quests, but he's going to gain a pitiful amount of influence that way. He'll gain way more from battle, especially if he's with you and you're smashing everything to the sea. They're not going to be doing any of the persuading shit. This shit doesn't really matter as well. Let's get back to leadership here. Let's see if there's any other critical ones here. Not that important. This one's a nice one, but as far as I know, player clans do not function as governors, right? There's no way for us to really tell that without extensive testing, so we're just going to gloss over that one. This medicine skill, I talked about this one earlier, right? This one's an automatic for me. Yes, it's nice to heal faster, but this one's way more important. Not only does that guy have a higher chance to survive, but every battle he gains some of his hit points lost. Again, if he's down, he doesn't help the army, right? Because he's unconscious. Now, there's a skill that I want to focus on here. In fact, there's a couple. We've got this guy in our army, and we have a little bit of ability to power level him. Guys want to know how to level up your companions. Well, there's two different easy ways to do that with this guy. It's not going to be as easy with medicine skill because his learning rate sucks. He's basically a bad medical commander, but his steward skill is going to be easy to level up. And one of the best ways to level up steward skills, of course, with your main character, it's the same thing, right? This guy's got plenty of steward skill, is to have a good-sized army, right? In this case, he's got 100 and something troops. In fact, let's give him some wounded troops. That way he can practice as we travel to a battle here. We're going to go look for trouble in this episode. I'm going to give him a bunch of injured troops. We got a city that's under siege to the south of us here. See if we can't get a battle for today's episode. But the reason I'm doing this is that way he has plenty of people to experiment on, right? If you've never heard the term medical practice, that's because that's what it is. These fucking doctors are practicing on us. Even today, right? They'll just try different things with you. If you're lactose intolerant, they'll try different shit. We're still practicing here, right? So we've given him some troops to practice on. Some of them will die and shit. He'll give them sepsis. Shit like that. So he's got a bunch of injured troops. We're sharing sort of the injured troops with him and his army. Now, here's the other thing we can do with this guy, and this is new for 1.3. We can go in here, and I gave him some horses. I think I showed you that a few seconds ago. When you get old, you forget this shit. But look at his army. He's basically feeding his army hamburgers with no vegetables at all. So they're getting scurvy, and they're getting all kinds of other diseases. That's not a thing, actually, in Bannerlord. Fortunately, there's no disease, or at least I actually wish there was, but for you, you don't have to worry about that. What we're going to do, though, is just like a child that we're feeding for breakfast each day, we're going to give this guy some nutrients here, right? We're going to share some of our 9 different food items. And what this does is every day, every 24 hours, there's a little check, a steward skill check, where he's going to gain extra steward skills now because he has a good-sized army and a bunch of different food. Now, I have seen a tendency for these guys to dump stuff in the past. Like if they have too much gear, it seems like they dump shit. So we're actually going to take some of his white bread away from him. That way he's got a nice, well-rounded diet. And we'll observe how this works, right? We'll actually see if this affects the guy's steward skill on the way to a battle here. All right, so I'm already running behind schedule in this episode, as I often do. I'm very, very prone to being long-winded here, and it doesn't look like we're gonna get there in time. How come we're going so slow? So I think we have a bunch of extra food and horses and stuff like that. Let's see if we can't fix that real quick. Get rid of some of these worthless horses. We're going to cover logistics at times, but not so much in this episode. It's an important part of Bannerlord, right? You got all these horses here, and they basically start to weigh you down. Now, this is the other thing weighing us down. I've been collecting food to show you guys how to help cities that are having loyalty issues. So that's a little bit better, and we'll cruise down with as fast a speed as possible. Now let's watch over here. This is where your skill point adjustments come. So Mulum the fish, that's this guy up in here, or at least he's in one of the other armies. In fact, these armies are heading down here to help defend as well. I don't know if any of us are going to make it. Doesn't look like it. This city's being actively sieged down, 221. Now we'll see if our dipshit here gets... There you go. He's getting steward skill, right? Steward plus 2 steward skill. He should, once a day, it'll basically do a check. And again, as long as he has a nice mix, you know, a well-rounded breakfast, he still has most of this shit. And in fact, it looks like the AI is cheating. They just got sheep out of thin air. Unless I did that accidentally, It looks like they're just procuring sheep from the countryside. Maybe that's from a perk. I don't know. I'm not sure how that works. This thing you can ignore. Each time you come in here, sometimes it'll say that you were discarding items, right? And basically, it's a bug. The system still thinks that you're just chucking a bunch of sheep and stuff like that on the on the landscape. All right, let's see if we're gonna make it. We won't make it. It's gonna fall. Okay, it fell. Doesn't really matter what happens in battle here. Let's try to get a battle by whatever force took this city. And again, you observe down here, plus points to steward. Now I was going to say he's not getting his skill points for medicine. Now he is, right? He just got a point there. And his learning rate is so low that his medicine skill is going to go up slowly. What I recommend, if you want to obviously boost their medicine skills, put a few more points here, right? Don't put as many points in the other skills. By the way, tactics is a very useful skill for player clans, because at some point or other, they're going to be out there leading their own battle, like these guys, right? These are two previous companions that are now leading armies in this campaign. And when they attack enemy forces sort of out in the wild, here we go. I don't want to fight in the dark. Come on. Let's try to get some daylight here. You know, when they encounter other forces, just like Gyarios here running us down, they're going to use that tactics skill, because your AI units, look at the guy just gained a level. How perfect for today's episode, right? In fact, let's give him some medicine skill, right? Or we could power level his steward. Let's do some medicine skill. They're going to encounter armies that are out there, and if they don't have any tactics skill, they're going to have a disadvantage, because their foes likely do have some tactics skill here. Gyarios has a nice leadership skill set. I guess he's in there swinging his hammer and anvil, doing a little bit of smithing. All right, so we're going to have battle here, which is good today. Most of these guys I think we have set up pretty well. We're not too worried about the tactics, although I just do tactics in my sleep. Let's cover some shit here, because I think I saw something that we could fix. This is one of our archer captains. Most battles, it's not that important, but if you're min-maxing in a campaign, you want to be very, very intelligent with your decisions. He's got the best bow, pretty much. We could give him a noble longbow. The general feeling out there is that a noble longbow does better on foot, because they shoot slower, but they do major damage, right? So we'll get rid of that. Somehow I got rid of his weapon. Whoops. Here, let's just give this guy the nice Reaper sword. Now, let's look at his arrows, because I saw an upgrade we can make. And it's kind of hidden, right? You've got these piercing arrows. They're one of the best you can get, right? Weapon damage 4. 23. Stack them out. That's how many arrows are in that quiver. Look at this. This is kind of way down the list, and it's not worth very much. I think piercing arrows cost like 5,000 or something. But look at this. This is a drop from the game. Legendary range arrows. Even though they're weapon tier 2, they're the same damage as the piercing arrows, and you get, what, 9 extra arrows? We'll take it, right? That's an automatic adjustment. The other one you want to do is you want to look for this word here, balanced. That increases the damage 2 points, right? These are just little tidbits I like to include in every episode. Damage 5 pierce. So these are better than any of the other arrows we have, right? So let's get rid of those. And a lot of times you can find where it's actually both legendary balanced arrows, and then you get all kinds of benefits. I don't want to spend too much time with it, but there you have it. All right, so the banners you select beforehand. You put them in this little slot down here, and you want to be intelligent with it. Let's get to the battle screen, and I'll talk about my philosophy on banners. Fucking long-winded dipshit. Let's get going here. All right, we got a beautiful snowy landscape here. I'm jammed up at the back of the wall. I can't even fucking move. That's all right. We should still be able to maul Gyarios here something fierce. We're going to use just a little bit of tactics, but let's do some captain assignments. You don't have to do this. You don't have to have 8 divisions. And let's see, this is a save game. We can just revert to it. I'm just going to dump all this shit. We're going to do a very simplified version here today for this episode. I'm going to run, let's see, let's have a shock troop division. Yeah, okay, this will be just fine. Let's see, we were power leveling some of these guys' shock skills. This is a mistake, right? Convert the Loud should have a banner. He doesn't, right? When you go in here, no banner equipped, right? So that guy's not going to help a division very much. He will help in this regard. If you hold down the Alt button, this shows all the captain perks. Now, this is the kind of list you want to have, right? Not only has a banner, but a giant list of perks. And here's the main character, right? Almost fills the whole screen. Obviously, our main character is going to be a great leader of whatever division we put him in. Now, let's run 2 archer divisions, because we have, where's this fish guy? Or not fish, he's Gooser the Hawk or whatever. He can be in charge of an archer division. All right. I've got 2 infantry captains here. Byron Bloodaxe, increased troop movement speed 30%. The other infantrymen I have, decreased taken melee attack damage. You guys have seen me use an infantry division in a square. You guys see this often. We have them like that, and they play defense, right? We're going to do that here. We're going to make them about 60 units, right? So they're like that. In fact, let's do a skirmisher division. I think we have enough troops to make this work. So about 50 in the square. And what kind of a captain do we give them? Decreased taken melee attack damage. They're going to get attacked in melee. Now, he's got a nice perk list, right? Including, somewhere on there, I think, it says plus extra hit points, right? From, or if it doesn't, we got to respect that guy from the perks, right? This guy should have it somewhere in there. I'm not going to look for it. You guys get the idea. Now let's go ahead and switch. Let's switch him to the 6th division, even though he's got the better perks, because we're going to continue to use our shock troops with speed here. How do you separate these guys? I got shock troops here. These guys all have 2-handed weapons. How the fuck do you do that? You simply go into this thing here and say, I want a shield. You can also do this for the 1st division, right? That way your best troops are in your 1st division for the square. We don't need to do that here. Your skirmishers, you give them a throwing weapon. That way every guy in there pretty much has javelins, right? Now, formation-wise, it goes like this. We're going to put that shock troop division. So shock troops, you don't put anything in here. Because the 2 other infantry groups have a shield, your shock troop division, all shock troops, right? It assigns units there that don't have a shield. Kind of simplistic, but we want to show stuff like that on the channel. Now, I'm just going to use another captain, not another division, but another cavalry division here. In fact, we'll stick this dipshit right there. I like to protect one of my wings. You guys have seen me do all this all the time. I like to put them kind of out here towards the side because the enemy cavalry will charge in there. If our skirmishers get run over, they're not throwing javelins very well, right? They get speared by a bunch of cavalry members. Now, 2nd division here, this is the cavalry division. This guy here, look at his banner. Decreased taken ranged attack damage. That's very probably going to happen to those guys. They're going to get shot by archers. They're going to get javelins thrown at them. Horse archers will attack them. Decreased ranged, or I would prefer decreased melee attack, because they're going to get attacked by elite cataphract. Right now, shock troops I like to put right behind the cavalry. We talked about that 100 times. They destroy anything that attacks the cavalry, and the cavalry protect them. Symbiosis. This is not normally our archer captain. This guy has probably no. He's got a little bit of crossbow skill, right? And so when you scroll through the perks there, you can see the word crossbow a few times. I would prefer to have a crossbow specialist. Normally we do. It's actually this character's wife. She's running around the campaign map though, so we don't have her here. We can just play at the edge of the battlefield. I got the RTS mod going. In fact, let's see. I want to. How do we do this? Let's go ahead and do this just for demonstration purposes. I don't have enough archers in this battle. We have a very small army for this to really matter. But ordinarily in a battle like this, we do a lot of kiting. You guys see it all the time. What we'll basically do is as the enemy comes into the center, everybody will move back. And the point of that is that it takes longer for the enemy infantry to get to any of the archers. While that's happening, your archers are shooting. It's highly devastating in Bannerlord. And so ranged speed bonuses are highly advantageous. In fact, when you look here at our archer captains, increased troop movement speed. Increased troop movement speed. Of course, this guy's an archer, so he has a great list of perks. All the archers are benefiting. Same with her. Increased troop movement speed. You now get the idea. I don't know if I covered it as well. So our shock troop division, you got these guys right here. This is where you want to give them speed. Now, we're going to actually cover this in a whole episode covering how to use shock troops in combat. We've covered it a little bit already in some of these episodes, but increased troop movement speed 30%, troop movement speed 30%. These guys are going to fly around the battlefield. And of course, that's going to help them do more damage. Now, I just put our main guy in charge of the 6th division. He's got all the skills, right? This guy's got throwing, he's got athleticism, he's got 2-handed skill, he's got 1-handed skill. And so they have this huge list of perks. And I just did increased melee damage against mounted troops. In fact, you could go like that if there's a lot of cavalry on the other side. In fact, let's just start this battle now. It gives you an idea of some of the things we do sort of on a min-max level for our captains in Bannerlord. Now let's adjust line of sight here. We actually have a sick peekaboo ridge as well in this battle. I'm just going to speed up the early stages here. This episode's already, as usual, it's longer than I anticipated. Bannerlord is an incredibly complex game. It's highly stimulative for my brain because of all the different choices you get to make. The word people use is micromanagement. You hate that in your boss, but it's great in video games because it means you get to make more decisions. That's one of the best parts of Bannerlord, is your decisions literally affect the battle on a tremendous magnitude. All right, let's do this. Now, RTS mod, again, you can see our classic formation here. I'd prefer the 3rd division was tucked right behind the 2nd division. I also almost always do this. Hold fire. And you're like, hold fire, shock troops. Yeah, some of these dipshits were given throwing axes by Tail Worlds. Automatically do that. You don't want them wasting any time with those throwing weapons. I want them moving in as fast as possible to the enemy. Now, this guy, he has pole arms, but with the rest of his division charging in, I would prefer he just charged in as well, right? I don't want these guys wasting any time throwing those little pitiful throwing axes when they're going to dismember guys with their axes. All right, so formation pretty simple. 6th division over here. We're speeding along the early stages of this just because it looks like the enemy wants to attack us at range. By the way, this formation works just fine in a ranged assault like this because we have shields out in front. Not only shields out in front, but this cavalry, of course, is protecting the 3rd division, but this 1st division is blocking all kinds of arrows as well. The guys towards the front generally will all have shields, and so they're blocking like crazy. They're also throwing javelins too, right? Let's add to the carnage here. Now, the enemy does not have a lot of cavalry, but I'm still going to wait, right? I want to show you how this works. There's 2 different ways you could do this, though. In fact, we'll slow this down very quickly. If this was mostly infantry, you know what? It's enough that I think we'll still do it. What I would do is I would do this. In fact, I'll do it right now. Let's go ahead and make ourselves a skein. A skein basically makes almost like a diamond shape on the battlefield, right? And so this case, it provides cavalry all along the line there, and then going all the way over here. That way our shock troops are protected, but I'm getting our shock troops ready to maul this enemy force. The enemy's pushing archers forward, and they're getting scorched. We have a reverse slope decline, so these guys are going to take tons of arrows, right? You can hear them grunting and groaning as they're shot to death. Now, their infantry's coming in. We want our square basically there to gather attention, right? If the enemy infantry won't go to your square, make your square go to them, right? Force it on them. Now, our skirmishers are over here. We want them to throw javelins, so we're going to move them a little bit closer to the action. And this 8th Corps, again, is designed to take enemy attention from that 6th Skirmisher Division. So I've shoved a square in here, and usually they will charge if they're presented with this kind of a square. If they don't, just let it attack, right? Because good things are happening besides that, right? Over here, the skirmishers can now be told to fire, shoot arrows, right? And these skirmishers will start throwing javelins. We've covered this in other episodes, but I would prefer that they kind of slowly moved in here so that they're hitting all of these infantrymen with javelins, right? The enemy is now fully enveloped around our square, right? These guys are doing everything they can to survive. You can see them holding up their javelins, or excuse me, holding up their Manabliatons trying to block. Now we bring the shock troops in. The enemy's back is turned literally. Look at these guys. They're literally looking the other way. Let's bring the shock troops over here. Of course, this is easy with the RTS mod. You will be able to do this eventually in real time in battles. With practice, income our murderers here, right? The enemy's like, hey, there's a bunch of guys here. Let's kill them, right? Meanwhile, it's like Friday the 13th in real life for these troops, right? Suddenly, all of a sudden, a bunch of shock troops pour up behind him, and they just start laying waste to everything. The skirmishers, we can have these guys charge. And at this stage of a battle, with so many different ranged weapons already being used, you will be out of ammo. If you zoom in, some of your crossbow are like, what do I do now, boss? They're not shooting because they're out of ammo, but they're diligently staying where you told them to. This is a perfect example of where it's now okay to F1, F3. Right? People make fun of it on Reddit and whatnot. Let's get all those guys charging up here. That'll send all of these crossbowmen into the fray as well. Right? So the enemy infantry now is attacking the square. They're being mauled and murdered by shock troops on their flank. They're being shot by whatever archers still have ammo left. We still have a handful of low-level fiends in this example charging forward. Our skirmishers are charging forward. The wildlings are still killing guys. And now our crossbow and other archers that are low in ammo join the fray as well. And I'm going to actually speed this battle up because it's over, right? We have done all these steps. Everything I've showed you in this episode is going to lead you to a death span that looks like this. We're badly outnumbered. Probably on some level they have better troops, at least in some of the areas, and it just doesn't matter. Between our captains, between our weapon selections for our units, between our tactics, Gyarios and his much larger force gets driven into the snow and turned into fertilizer for our future fields, right? In fact, we're gonna put, you know what? Olives need a lot of nitrogen. We're gonna put a nice olive orchard right here. It'll be beautiful. It'll get really good drainage being at the top of the slope. That looks like it has southern sunshine. You know, all year round. That's really good for olive trees. They need that good drainage around their roots. And of course, at this stage, we're showing off a little bit. I have extensive botanical knowledge being a virtual homesteader in real life. All right. Words you like to see at the top: victory, a bunch of influence, a bunch of other good shit happened in that battle. Our captains leveled up, right? These are all the captains we were just talking about. That guy was one of the shock troops that was in there. The Blood Axe guy, I think, was in the infantry line, and he died, right? But he played good defense, or at least he got knocked unconscious. We'll give that guy we'll give him a nice chateau right here, right next to the olive orchard, and we all live happily ever after. A great example here. I'm glad we got this battle in at the end of the episode about how you take the sum of all parts here. This is a save game, so let's just go ahead and do some execution just for fun. It's a good example about how the sum of parts in Bannerlord can lead you to war crimes, can lead you to this kind of victory. We're at the end of the battle. Come with us, come with us. That's enough. That's enough, right? The enemy is completely disheveled and at your mercy. Collect a bunch of loot and fuck the proverbial prom queen. All right. We saved all the vulgar stuff for the end of the episode for the censors. Now we've got two different armies out there. We're going to talk about player clan strategy. We're going to talk about how to subsidize and make those guys better at what they do. But I think this is a pretty good composite episode covering everything from weapons, how to use them, how to spec your characters, how to set up your captains pre-battle, how to set up your future clan leaders, right? I'm not going to cover it again at the end of this episode, but this guy is off to the races as far as being a good steward, good medicine skill, right? He's starting to feed his troops a nice balanced diet on a regular basis. Let's make sure they're still there. Oops. Let's make sure they're still there. And indeed, right, he's he's getting the 9 essential nutrients every single meal. He's conjuring sheeps out of thin air, and we all live happily ever after. All right, friends, there's going to be more from the channel. This shit is fucking my forte. Again, I will send you guys happily to Lesson 19 for economies within Bannerlord, to workshops within Bannerlord, and Strat Gaming Guide when it comes to details on perks. He covers it extensively. The guy's got all kinds of databases. That's his strength, not mine. So hopefully you enjoyed this episode. Hopefully you learned a lot. Hopefully I didn't talk too much. I probably did. Please hit that like button on the way out. If you want to see more from our channel, now's the time to subscribe. You know there's going to be more. And with all that said, I will see you, friends, next time.